Yes, thank you, and welcome to the last session from our perspective, Bentley and Cesium. And I'd like to give you some context, because the main workload is on Alex, our expert, and to explain a little bit better where we are coming from. So for those of you who are coming every year to this conference, they might have seen last year we did the big announcement that we acquired Cesium, which is the world-leading technology for streaming and visualizing real cool data sets. Part of this enthusiasm will bring across with Alex, and you might see the press releases up there and to show where we are started and where we are heading to. So last year we made the announcement that Cesium joins the Bentley family, to giving a real addition in the geospatial space and getting data to the people. Because having data in a data storage or in a digital twin is cool, but people like to see it. And then we had the technology, and the logical next step was, okay, if you have viewing technology, where do you get the data from? And this was the second big announcement we made, and said, okay, one of the biggest data providers is obviously Google, with Google Maps. So we had a partnership and opened up the access to this kind of tool, so to have a good starting point and give context to your projects. And we will see how it's done. And the good thing is, a little memory, might see it here. We made a big announcement that Komatsu is one of our bigger projects, and it was cool to read it in the press release, but I had the privilege to be in Munich at Bauma, which is really big machinery and cool stuff. And I went by to Komatsu and said, hey, we are from Bentley and Cesium. Do you have this kind of technology? And it was a cool presentation between all this nice and yellow machinery, the showdown between Komatsu and Caterpillar, and then in between it was really cool, the visualization thing. And the last anecdote to really show how important the Cesium is and how well accepted, I have the privilege to work with some universities, and normally they show their great master thesis. And there was a good variety of different tools the PhD student used. But one thing was pretty much in common. Whenever they showed the great stuff they developed or the results, sooner or later they came up and said, okay, this was visualized Cesium, Cesium, Ion, Cesium, CIS. But it was all about 3D tiles. So I'm really excited that I managed to get my colleague Alex here on stage, because he's not only enthusiastic like me, he knows why he's enthusiastic. And that's the reason why I'd like to hand over to Alex. And I wish you a nice and interesting and motivating ride through the world of Cesium.
Thank you, Peter. And just a quick thumbs up. Can everybody hear me? Fantastic. If I could get the clicker to work. Oh, fantastic. So today's presentation is going to be on an open approach to software development, ultimately to simplify the complex and accelerate value for you and your end users. So not necessarily a Cesium presentation, but how do you leverage open standards and open source to accelerate value. So the first slide, I'm going to start being Captain Obvious. So our users typically have multiple disparate data. This is going to be design data, reality capture, GIS data. Our users' data is typically in multiple different software products. And they want to visualize all of this data in multiple platforms, multiple devices, and ultimately with correct coordinate reference system, so XYZ, with precision and with speed to value. So while this is obvious, this is not always simple. It's not always precise, and it's not always fast. So our recommendation to all software developers is to start with open standards. So the Open Geospatial Consortium is a fantastic organization that empowers the community with open standards. One open standard is 3D tiles. So 3D tiles is very performant at streaming massive amounts of 3D data into a runtime engine, or at runtime into your phone, tablet, device. It's been adopted by many major players in the market. So you can stream 3D tiles into Bentley products, Cesium products, Esri ArcGIS. Google photorealistic 3D tiles are 3D tiles. So if your data is stored in an open standard, you have interoperability with multiple different software platforms. Second, choose open source. So open source visualization clients to then view and analyze your data. So Cesium has many open source products. CesiumJS for the web as an example. We have Cesium for Unreal, Cesium for Unity, Cesium for Omniverse. But there are many fantastic open source visualization products available. 3JS, QGIS, Godot, React. But if your data is stored in open standards and you have an open source visualization client, you have a lot of flexibility for your use case. And lastly, choose open APIs. So the moral of the story here is if your data is stored in open standards, if you're using open source visualization clients, and you've open APIs, you will never have vendor lock-in, which is a key requirement of pretty much every software developer we've ever talked to. So we have a few community examples of leveraging an open approach to software development. One is going to be Blenheim Palace. So this is a really unique example. So Blenheim Palace, for those of you who don't know, was built around 1705. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site based in the UK. Next is US Space Force. So they leveraged an open and interoperable workflow to simulate a rocket launch, which is pretty cool. And then lastly, Propeller Aero. Propeller Aero provides hardware and a software platform for users primarily in earthworks and construction. So Blenheim Palace had a goal. They wanted to create a digital twin to drive operational efficiency for maintenance, operations, and improve safety for tourists. So they have millions of tourists that visit Blenheim Palace each year. And they had a very complex design model that represented the palace. It was over almost 14,200 elements. And they wanted to visualize this design model in a web browser so all of their maintainers and operators could access it. They could identify each and every part. They could upload photos, context. They wanted to incorporate IoT sensor data. They wanted to incorporate reality capture. The issue they ran into is how do you performantly stream such a complex design model into a web browser at runtime? So they started with an open approach. They converted the IFC design model into 3D tiles. They visualized in CesiumJS, which is open source. We have an open source plugin to Revit that extracts all of the metadata. So every single solitary asset in this particular digital twin is clickable. You can pull through the metadata. The maintainers could then have a maintenance survey workflow where they uploaded photos, maintenance context. And ultimately, David Green, who's the director of digital infrastructure, has said they've saved about 4% on their annual maintenance costs through just having this open and interoperable workflow for their maintenance team. Next, US Space Force. So again, pretty cool, a simulation of a rocket launch. One of their requirements, they didn't want to be tied down to a particular platform or visualization client. So what they decided to do is store all of their data in open standards. And since all of their data was represented in open standards, they had interoperability to choose multiple different platforms to do the simulation of the rocket launch. And ultimately, they did a co-simulation of a rocket launch, so a simulation in Unreal, Omniverse, and Unity concurrently to demonstrate to their key stakeholders, if you choose open standards, you do not need to choose a platform. You can choose whatever is the right tool for the job at that point in time. And if you haven't seen this full video, if you go to YouTube and type in Space Force, Unreal, Omniverse, rocket launch, it's about 12 minutes. It is fantastic. I'd recommend it. And then lastly, from a use case, Propeller Aero. So as I mentioned, Propeller Aero provides hardware and a software platform for users in earthworks and construction. And they're long-term CesiumJS users. Fun fact on Propeller Aero, they were the first external users to, say, Cesium colleagues that submitted a PR request against the open source visualization product being CesiumJS. So not only long-time users, but expert users. Propeller Aero has also developed their own tiling pipeline. So 3D tiles is an open standard. Users can develop their own tilers to optimize their data and their end users' data to 3D tiles. So Propeller Aero decided to build their own tilers. So fantastic example of converting their data and their end users' data to 3D tiles, open standard, and then visualizing in an open source product. And Propeller Aero's users had a requirement recently where they wanted to performantly view their IFC data within the platform. And Propeller Aero has fantastic engineers, but given that they've built a platform using an open approach, they were able to go from R&D day one to full production through QA for an IFC to 3D tiles feature for their users in under 2 months, which is phenomenal if you think about speed to value for their community of users. So the next part of the presentation, I want to highlight Bentley and Cesium's continued investment into an open approach to software development. So for those of you who don't know, Cesium has had an ecosystem grants program that has funded community, things that benefit the community for years now. And recently, we provided funding to an external company called Battle Road that built in features for Godot. So Godot is an open source runtime engine similar to Unreal. And they built in features to enable 3D tiles within Godot. So if you have open standards such as 3D tiles, you can now visualize in the open source runtime engine Godot. This is Google photorealistic 3D tiles in the background. And this has been quite popular across our community. Next is an open standards team. So Bentley and Cesium have invested in an entire team wholly dedicated to empowering the community with open standards. They're also collaborating with the entire community on identifying the standards that will be impact advancing across the entire community. So Amanda Morgan is the senior director who leads this team. I'd recommend anybody in the audience or those listening online who are interested, please reach out to Amanda to learn more about what her and her team are working on, and if you'd like to collaborate. 2 examples of what her team have worked on recently is open standards around Gaussian splatting, and then standardization around metadata and semantics within open standards like 3D tiles. Open source. So Cesium has had over 12 million product downloads to date. Our most popular products are our open source products. So CesiumJS for the web. A feature that has been requested by the community for years has been the ability to drape imagery over 3D tiles. We released this over the summer. So again, fantastic example of an open source feature to address community needs and value. And a little insight into our roadmap. Hopefully I'm allowed to share this, but is the ability to visualize Gaussian splatting in Unreal. This is something that should be coming to production for our Unreal users within this quarter. Lastly, Cesium Ion is our commercial product, but we do have a community license which is free for personal use and for evaluation purposes. One such personal use, we have some scuba divers who are Cesium enthusiasts. They did photo capture. This is a World War II era Japanese aircraft that crashed in the Pacific Ocean. So they did a capture of the aircraft. They uploaded to Cesium, reconstructed into mesh, converted to 3D tiles, and they're visualizing in CesiumJS with Cesium World Bathymetry in the background. But personal use, this was 100% free and, to be honest, really cool. So very excited to show this example from a personal community member. So Julian Moot, who's the CTO of Bentley Systems, has a fantastic blog on how he sees an open approach. Again, always been a core principle of Bentley and Cesium, and ultimately, it comes down to 3 principles. Users' data is stored in open standards, the visualization clients are open source, and you have open APIs for your data. If you'd like to learn more, for Blenheim Palace, David Green is the director of digital infrastructure for Blenheim Palace. His email's here. He's can be reached via LinkedIn. I can also put anybody in contact with David. Propeller Arrow, Jan in the audience is from Propeller Arrow. And I've included their website link here. And we have a lot of fantastic user stories on our website. Feel free to scan the barcode or just visit our website and learn about how other users are leveraging an open approach to software development. And with that, back to Peter.
Yes, thanks, Alex, and great to bring the good news and the enthusiasm here about our Cesium technology things. I think he mentioned already some good links. Just referring to some activities we did recently, being open and having standards was mentioned. And I think 2 weeks ago, Christoph Lorenz and I had the pleasure to be at the Building Smart Summit in Berlin, and he did a lecture about combination BIM and GIS, and the room was fully packed. So they definitely underestimated the relevance of this topic, because these are the people who have been lucky to be allowed to stand in the back, but they have to close the room. So please watch out for this kind of information. Next year there's next week, sorry, there is a good activity from Bentley Systems, where all our most important projects from across the world are shown. Dimitri will be our eyes on the ground. He is there in Amsterdam as well. For those of us who have to work, like me, we can join online and get the best out of it. And moving forward, we saw a lot of visualization happening. In the end of November, we will be again in Munich, BIM World, showing what Cesium can do in the building industry. And one interesting webinar. So if you think you need to learn more or you have some friends you like to share this information with, Christoph Lorenz, quite famous on LinkedIn, will have a webinar in October. And there is a nice little video I'd like to show you, because this is the anecdote I'd like to close with. Here we go. In the old days, I always had the discussion with my sons, because when I had in my CAD cut or whatever work some engineering data and I did a rendering, it looked really ugly. And if they played games, it was really cool. And now I have the good news, and I think it's what Alex already mentioned. We are now having the full performance, visibility, and motion impression, like in real world engines. So you do not only show your infrastructure projects, you can literally run through and control it with a controller. So bringing information across, no vendor lock-in, it's open. You can run through your project open and free like this guy. And I'd like to thank you for listening. I'd like to thank Alex for coming over to us, and I wish you all a nice and interesting last half day of INTERGEO. I invite you to join us on one of these occasions, and maybe you share one of your cool examples you did on your own with Cesium and share it via LinkedIn. Please tag me or tag Cesium and make sure we know about it. Thanks to all of you for listening, and have fun with Cesium.
Thank you.